Ed Gein, known as the Butcher of Plainfield, also the Mad Butcher of Plainfield. His story would go on to inspire horror movies like The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, and Silence of the Lambs. Gein was born in 1904 in the town of La Crosse. After his father sold the family grocery store, they packed up and moved to an isolated farm in Plainfield, Wisconsin. He was raised pretty much by his mother, Augusta, and she taught him and his brother Henry that women were whores and that they should stay away from all types of women. She was completely and utterly a religious nut. Jumping forward to 1940, Gein lost his father of a heart attack. He was 34 at the time. And then jumping to May of 1944, Ed lost his brother Henry in a brush fire. He said he had lost sight of him when he ran to get help, but yet was able to lead police right to his body, where they found bruising all over his face. Ed wasn't charged with the murder, but people believe he definitely killed him to have his mother all to himself. Unfortunately for Ed, just a few months after Henry's death, his mother suffered a stroke. Ed never left her side, and he literally worshipped the ground she walked on. And then on December 8th, 1945, she suffered her final stroke, which killed her. And it's said that Ed freaked out and was crying like a little schoolboy at his mother's funeral. This is when he lost it. Let's move on with the interesting and the sick shit. On Saturday, November 16th, 1957, during deer season, Ed Gein took full advantage of all the men being out in the woods and went to Warden's hardware store. He had brought one bullet with him, and while he was checking out a gun in the store, he put the bullet in the gun and shot and killed Bernice Warden. He dragged her body out the back door, threw her in the back of her truck, and took her over to his farm. Later that same evening, Bernice's son came to the hardware store after his hunting trip. He found a pool of blood and drag marks leading to the back door. He contacted the police, and when the police got there and asked him if he suspected anybody, his first response was Eddie Gein. When police arrived at Gein's home, they entered a shed. Now, Ed's house had no electricity, so it was pitch black. Now, when they were looking for their flashlights, one of the officers bumped something that was hanging from the ceiling. And now when he managed to get his flashlight turned on, he turned to find Bernice's body strung upside down, gutted like a deer, and decapitated. He ran out of the shed, puking all over the place. Now, when police entered Ed's house, they found a list of stuff that is unbelievable. They found tops of human skulls that were used for soup bowls. They found a lamp where the lampshade was made from human skin. They found a chair that was upholstered in human skin. They found a belt that was made of nipples. But the next item they would find would prove that Ed was doing way more than they thought. They had found a bag, and inside the bag was the face of a woman that had gone missing 3 years prior. The woman's name was Mary Hogan. Now, back when the search was going on, Ed would kid around saying that he had Mary back at his farmhouse. But Ed being the town weirdo, nobody put much thought into it, until now at least. A thing I forgot to mention was Ed was at the police station during the time they were searching his home. When an officer asked him what the hell was going on up there, he wouldn't talk until they gave him a piece of apple pie with a slice of cheddar cheese on top. After he'd finished eating it, he gave him the story and blew everybody's mind. Ed would go on to tell the police that he'd only killed 2 women, and all the body parts they found were from corpses that he had dug up. What Ed would do was go through the obituaries, find the most recent burials, and that night he would go up, dig up the corpses, and take them back home and make his little trophies and stuff like that. This is when they also found out that he had a thing that they called a mammy vest, and it was the top torso of a woman that he turned into a vest. He had also made leggings, and he would wear this and walk around his house pretending to be his mother. Once word got out from what the police had found at Ed's house, reporters came from all over the world to interview people from Plainfield. There's a woman saying that she was stopped by a man that came all the way from London to interview her, but she told the guy she had nothing to say. But here's a clip from a local guy telling people about Ed.
So how long have you known Mr. Seven? 7 years. What kind of a man did you know him as?
Well, a man is a nice man, just like anybody else. The only difference I'd say in the man, he seems to be a little hot.
Ed's home and personal belongings were set to go on auction on March 30th, 1958, but mysteriously, just 10 days before the auction, the house burnt to the ground. Even though the house was gone, people still showed up to the auction. In some reason, people believed they would see some of Ed's crazy, disturbing artifacts, but they were all sent off to the crime lab. Ed's first time in front of a judge, he was found not fit to stand trial and was sent to Central State Hospital for the criminally insane. Gein returned to trial in 1968 after doctors found him sane enough to stand trial. After a week and a lot of deliberation, he was found guilty for first-degree murder for Bernice Warden. After his trial, he was sent back to Central State Hospital for the criminally insane, where there's a doctor saying that during full moons he would be real active, talking to everybody, but then on normal days he would just lay in his bed and stare at the ceiling. But either way, that's where he ended up living out his days till July of 1986, where he died of respiratory failure. He was buried next to his mother, but his headstone has been stolen several times, so it ended up being kept in storage at the Plainfield police station.